Men didn't suddenly disappear. We just stopped volunteering for misery. Everywhere online, women are asking the same question. Where did all the good men go? And the answer is brutally simple. We didn't vanish. We stepped back the moment we realized peace feels better than being someone's emotional crash pad. Because for years, millions of men lived the same silent nightmare, walking into their own home like it was a minefield. One wrong breath, one misplaced cup, one harmless hobby. Boom! Another lecture, another guilt trip, another reminder that somehow, everything was our fault. It wasn't the dishes, it wasn't the socks, it wasn't the brand of milk. It was the suffocating feeling of never being enough. The constant criticism, the shifting expectations, the impossible standards that twisted even the smallest moment into another attack. Men kept trying to fix it, kept trying to talk it out, kept assuming they were the problem, until the day they finally saw the truth. The game was rigged from the start, so men made a decision, a quiet one, a logical one, a self-respecting one. We chose peace, and now women are shocked that men would rather live alone than be drained to death in a relationship. They expected loneliness to bring us crawling back. Instead, solitude healed us, rebuilt us, made us sharper, calmer, and happier than we've been in years. This video isn't about blaming. It's about explaining the shift nobody prepared for, and why modern men are choosing solitude over chaos. Men didn't arrive at this point overnight. This shift didn't happen because men woke up one day and decided to check out. It happened quietly, slowly, after years of being stretched thin inside their own relationships. The truth is simple. Men weren't running away from love. They were retreating from the version of love that demanded constant sacrifice, but offered almost nothing back. And it always began the same way, inside homes that never felt like homes. A man finishes a 10-hour shift, steps through the door, and instead of peace, he gets interrogated over a cup left in the sink. He sits down for 5 minutes to breathe, and suddenly, he's lazy. He plays a game to relax, and he's immature. He works overtime to provide, and now he's emotionally absent. It didn't matter what he did. Every action had a wrong angle. Everything had a flaw. Everything was a disappointment to someone who claimed to love him. And that slow drip of criticism didn't just wear him down. It hollowed him out. Most men didn't fight back. They tried harder. They apologized more. They checked their tone, their timing, their habits, their hobbies. They took on the blame because that's what men are conditioned to do. Fix the problem, even when the problem isn't theirs. They thought patience would help. They thought effort would fix it. They thought being a better man would lead to a better relationship. But all it did was tighten the trap. Because you can't win a game where the rules change every day. You can't be enough for someone who uses your existence as a canvas for their unhappiness. And this is where the shift began. Not with anger, but with realization. Men started noticing that the arguments were never about what they appeared to be. It was never the sock on the floor, the forgotten item at the store, the dishwasher loaded wrong. Those were just triggers for deeper issues that had nothing to do with them. They weren't partners. They were emotional shock absorbers, safe targets, punching bags for someone else's unresolved life. The breaking point for most men wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. It often came in an ordinary moment, like watching a divorced friend breathe freely for the first time in years, or waking up one morning and realizing they couldn't remember the last time they felt genuinely happy, or catching themselves apologizing for something they didn't even do. And in that moment, solitude stopped looking like loneliness. It looked like a lifeline. And once men tasted that peace, real peace, there was no going back. No more walking on eggshells. No more decoding moods. No more carrying someone's emotional world on their shoulders. Without the constant noise, they could finally hear themselves think again. They could breathe without bracing for impact. And for many men, that was the first time in years they felt Aleph. This is the part women didn't see. They assumed men couldn't live without companionship. They assumed biology would pull men back. They assumed loneliness would break them. Instead, silence healed them. Freedom rebuilt them. And solitude gave them something relationships had taken away: themselves. Men didn't choose to disappear. They chose to stop dying by inches. The deeper you look into why men walked away, the clearer the pattern becomes. It wasn't one big explosion that pushed them out. It was the slow tightening of expectations that no human could survive. Modern relationships turned into performance reviews, and men were always graded with a red pen, not because they were failing, but because the score was designed so they never could win. And once you understand that, everything else makes sense. The criticism didn't just come in arguments. It seeped into the ordinary moments. The way he folded a shirt, the way he drove, the way he breathed too loudly while watching TV. At first, he brushed it off. Then he adjusted. Then he apologized. But eventually, he realized there was no version of himself that would ever be enough. If he did the task, it wasn't done right. If he didn't do it, he was lazy. If he planned a date, it wasn't thoughtful enough. If he asked what she wanted, he wasn't decisive. Every road led to the same accusation. He was failing her. And here's the part nobody wants to admit. Most of the conflict wasn't about the thing she pointed at. It was about something inside her that she refused to face. The milk wasn't the problem. The sock wasn't the problem. He wasn't the problem. But he became the outlet because he was the safest target. And when someone knows you won't leave easily, that you'll take the hits and try harder, the boundaries blur fast. Men found themselves carrying emotional loads that weren't theirs, playing therapist, playing fixer, playing catch-all for anxiety, dissatisfaction, insecurity, and unresolved trauma that existed long before the relationship ever started. Over time, this turned into a form of control, so subtle, most men didn't see it happening. They stopped spending time with their friends because it caused issues. They dropped hobbies because they were immature. They muted parts of themselves to avoid another argument. And 5 years later, 10 years later, they'd look in the mirror and barely recognize the man staring back. They had been whittled down, edited, rewritten into a version that pleased someone who could never actually be pleased. What made it cruel wasn't the criticism itself. It was the contradiction beneath it. She wanted a man who was successful but always available, masculine but emotionally fluent, a leader but also a perfect co-pilot, aggressive in bed but soft everywhere else. She wanted a curated hybrid built from Pinterest boards and TikTok therapy jargon. And every time he failed to hit this fantasy checklist, she took it as proof he wasn't trying hard enough. The reality was simple. Nobody could meet those standards. And yet men kept trying because loyalty is wired into them. They aren't built to abandon what they commit to. They're built to endure, to hold the line, to keep the peace even when it's killing them. But there's a moment every man reaches where endurance becomes self-betrayal. When he realizes he's shrinking himself just to avoid the next explosion. When he realizes the relationship isn't partnership. It's a never-ending audit of everything he does, says, thinks, or forgets. That's when the resentment sets in. Not loud at first. Quiet. Internal. A slow burn that eventually becomes clarity. And once that clarity hits, the spell breaks. Men stop trying to win a game that was never meant to be fair. They stop apologizing for existing. They stop believing they're the problem. And for the first time in years, they start asking a simple question. Why am I letting someone else control the peace inside my own home? That's the moment they start walking toward solitude, and they don't look back. When men finally step out of the emotional fog, they don't explode or lash out. They simply detach, quietly, intentionally. And once they do, the entire dating landscape shifts. Because men aren't retreating out of fear. They're retreating because they've tasted a life where no one is draining them dry. And when that peace becomes familiar, the chaos of modern dating loses its appeal instantly. The surprising part is how blindsided women are by this exodus. They're shocked that men aren't lining up anymore. They're confused that conversations stall, matches fade, and men seem indifferent to the entire game. But what they don't understand is that men didn't leave abruptly. They left after years of running the math. For the first time, men have looked at relationships like a cost-benefit analysis. Not emotionally, strategically. And the numbers don't lie. Men realized they could build a fulfilling life outside of dating. They could pursue their careers without someone mocking their passions or spending their income as fast as they earn it. They could dive into hobbies without eye rolls or guilt trips. They could strengthen friendships without accusations. The more men invested in themselves, the more they realized something uncomfortable but true. Their lives improved the moment the relationship ended. And that's when they stopped assuming companionship was required for happiness. Meanwhile, women were still operating on the old expectation that men would always initiate, always pursue, always come back. What they didn't expect was a generation of men who finally asked, why? Why chase someone who compares real life to filtered fantasies online? Why compete against hundreds of men in a woman's inbox? Why sign up for criticism, needless drama, or shifting standards? Why tolerate a system where loyalty is undervalued, effort is invisible, and normal behavior is judged through the harshest possible lens? Men saw how dating apps turned romance into a marketplace. Everyone swiping for upgrades. Everyone convinced they deserve the top 1%. Everyone believing love should feel like a viral moment, not a partnership. Men realized the rules had changed, and they stopped playing. The pressure hits the average man the hardest. He's expected to provide like traditional men, but must behave like modern ones. Pay for everything, but never expect anything. Be protective, but never be too invested. Show confidence, but don't come off strong. Meanwhile, he's competing with men far outside her league. Men who can offer attention without commitment. Men who can ghost and return at will. Men who treat dating like a game because they can. And women gravitate to that top 20%, not realizing they're sharing those men with dozens of others. By the time they're ready for stability, the men who were stable all along have already checked out. This is the part nobody wants to talk about. Men withdrawing isn't a glitch. It's a correction. It's the logical reaction to a dating market built on entitlement, comparison, and unrealistic standards. Women ask where the good men went. The answer is simple. They didn't disappear. They redirected their energy into places where it actually pays off. Work, fitness, friendships, personal peace. They chose environments where effort is respected, not dismissed. Modern men aren't hiding. They're healing, and in the process, They stopped volunteering to be background characters in someone else's drama. They began building lives that don't require romantic validation. And once a man knows he can thrive alone, the dating market loses its leverage. The moment men stepped out of the dating arena, women started asking why men don't approach anymore, why men don't walk up at the gym, why men don't flirt at work, why men won't take the initiative like the old days. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Men didn't stop approaching because they lost confidence. They stopped because society punished them for trying. For years, men were told to respect women's space and stop being creepy. And they listened. They adjusted. They backed off. But the moment they complied, women were shocked at the silence they created. You can't spend decades telling men they're predators for initiating, then act confused when they finally stop. What pushed men away wasn't confusion. It was the double standard baked into modern interactions. A handsome guy approaches and it's charming. A regular man does the same thing and suddenly it's threatening. Same words, same setting, same behavior. The only variable is his attractiveness. And men aren't stupid. They notice. They see the TikToks mocking ugly men for trying. They see women complain about being approached by guys below their level. They see the comment sections picking apart normal male behavior. So to protect themselves, they opt out. Not because they hate women, but because they refuse to risk humiliation for simply being human. This double standard appears everywhere. A hot guy slides into her DMs and she gets butterflies. A guy she's not attracted to tries, and she posts screenshots calling him creepy. A charismatic gym bro says hello, and she smiles. A quiet, average man says the same thing, and she runs to the front desk. Men realized the rules weren't about conduct. They were about looks. And when the rules are based on things you can't control, the safest move is to stop playing. Why gamble your dignity on a system where one woman sees you as polite and another labels you a threat? And yet, women expect men to read their minds. They want men to approach, but only if he's the right guy at the right time with the right vibe. After she's given the right signal, she forgot to actually give. Men grew tired of being held responsible for decoding invisible cues. So they chose a path where they don't have to guess, a path without risk, a path without shame attached to every attempt at connection. Men are choosing peace over participation because participation now comes with a price. But the fallout is bigger than anyone predicted. Women look around and don't see men making the first move anymore. They assume men are intimidated or emotionally stunted. That's not the case. Men simply ran the numbers and realized the safest option is silence. And silence wins. No accusations, no misunderstandings, no labels, no screenshots used for public entertainment. Just calm. Men aren't withdrawing because they hate dating. They're withdrawing because the dating environment treats average men like trespassers and treats only the top-tier men as welcome. But those top-tier men don't commit. They don't settle. They don't choose. They enjoy endless attention because they can. And women chase them while ignoring the men who would have offered real loyalty. So the good men stepped out. Not bitter, not broken, just done. The result is a landscape where women think men vanished. But men didn't disappear. They became spectators in a game that stopped rewarding effort and started punishing it. And when the rules punish participation, the smartest move is to walk off the field. When men stop approaching, the silence doesn't just show up in dating, it shows up inside relationships too. Because men realized communication had turned into a battlefield where they were already guilty before they even opened their mouths. Every conversation felt like a setup. Every misunderstanding turned into a character assassination. And slowly, men learned that speaking honestly wasn't worth the punishment that followed. So they stopped talking, not because they didn't care, but because communication became an emotional minefield they couldn't safely walk through anymore. The irony is brutal. Women often say they want men who communicate, men who open up, men who share their feelings. But the moment a man speaks with any intensity, he's labeled aggressive. If he raises his voice one octave, he's dangerous. If he shows frustration, he's unstable. Meanwhile, a woman can scream, cry, curse, throw objects, break things, and it's written off as passion or expressing her emotions. Men saw this double standard play out so consistently that they stopped trying. Not because they lack emotional depth, but because they know the outcome ahead of time. Her emotions are valid. Theirs are evidence against them. And when communication dies, resentment grows. Not loud, not explosive, quiet, slow, almost invisible at first. Men begin to shrink inside the relationship, not wanting to trigger another meltdown over something that wasn't even their fault. They monitor their tone, their breathing, their posture, the way they sit on the couch. They become hyper-aware inside their own homes. Many don't realize how much tension they carry until the relationship ends and their body finally unclenches. For some men, peace feels foreign at first because they were conditioned to expect criticism at every turn. The worst part is how trivial many of these conflicts were. A different brand of milk, a dish left soaking, a misinterpreted text, a forgotten comment, and suddenly the conversation had escalated into accusations about loyalty, effort, attraction, or commitment. Minor issues were weaponized into emotional indictments. Nothing stayed small. Everything grew teeth. Everything became another chance to remind him he wasn't enough. And men stayed for years, trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed because they believed relationships were supposed to be hard. They thought patience meant maturity. They thought sacrifice meant love. But you can only carve pieces of yourself off for so long before there's nothing left to give. Then there's the paradox of choice. Social media teaches people to compare everything. Partners, vacations, gifts, careers. Life becomes a scoreboard, and real relationships can't compete with curated illusions online. Suddenly, the man she once appreciated becomes the man she criticizes for not being more like someone else's boyfriend. And men feel it. They feel the constant, invisible comparison. They feel themselves being measured against fantasies they were never meant to match. And when you're judged against impossible standards, silence becomes the only defense. In the end, communication didn't collapse because men lacked emotional intelligence. It collapsed because every attempt to communicate was met with distortion, escalation, or punishment. Men grew tired of being the villain in stories they didn't write. They grew tired of walking into arguments they never started. They grew tired of taking responsibility for feelings they didn't create. So they shut down. And once a man shuts down, the relationship is already over, even if he's still physically there. This breakdown isn't a mystery. It's the natural outcome of a dynamic where only one person's emotions are allowed to matter. And once men discovered they didn't have to live inside that imbalance forever, the path toward freedom became obvious. Once men realized communication had turned into a cage, something shifted on a cultural level. This wasn't a handful of men quitting. It was millions reaching the same conclusion without ever talking to each other. a silent movement built not on ideology, but on simple observation. Modern relationships take more than they give. Men watched their fathers get drained. They watched their friends age 10 years in toxic marriages. They watched their brothers lose everything in divorce court. And they watched themselves slowly disappear inside relationships that demanded endless sacrifice but offered no real partnership. Eventually, men stopped asking how to fix the system and started asking why they should participate at all. What's happening now is bigger than dating trends or social media debates. It's an entire gender choosing self-preservation over obligation. Men aren't joining clubs or chanting slogans. They don't need a leader or a movement. The data is in their lived experiences. They've seen what unchecked criticism, unrealistic standards, and emotional imbalance do to a man's mental health. They've felt the physical weight of constant tension. They've noticed how peaceful life becomes once they stop trying to be perfect for someone who sees them as a project, not a partner. And once men discover they can thrive alone, the old cultural pressure to man up loses all control. Shaming doesn't work anymore. Calling men weak doesn't work. Labeling them scared, toxic, or commitment-phobic doesn't work, because men already tasted the life those people are trying to scare them away from. And that life is good, peaceful, productive. Their money stays with them. Their hobbies return. Their creativity explodes. Their friendships strengthen. Their health improves. Their confidence rises. In solitude, men rebuild the parts of themselves relationships chipped away at for years. And once a man rebuilds himself, going back into the fire feels insane. Meanwhile, the people who benefited from men's old behavior are panicking. They depended on male loyalty, male sacrifice, male emotional labor. They expected men to absorb criticism, hold everything together, and never walk away. But that era is ending. The old leverage, guilt, shame, social expectation doesn't work on men who have already experienced a better life on their own. You can't threaten a man with loneliness when solitude healed him. You can't guilt a man into being responsible when he watched responsibility get twisted into manipulation. And you can't shame a man into chasing love when he's realized love shouldn't feel like punishment. The cultural correction is happening because men finally understand their value isn't measured by how much suffering they tolerate. Their worth isn't defined by how many emotional fires they put out. Their masculinity isn't proven by sticking with someone who drains them. Men learned that peace is not a luxury, it's survival. And modern dating often threatens that peace more than it protects it. So they walked away, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. This shift terrifies people who relied on men staying silent, staying obedient, staying available no matter how poorly they were treated. But men have stopped playing that role. They're rewriting the script, investing in themselves, building wealth, strengthening their bodies, reclaiming purpose. And for the first time in generations, men are choosing a life that doesn't revolve around being someone else's emotional safety net. This is not rebellion, it's self-respect. What we're witnessing now isn't the downfall of relationships. It's the downfall of relationships that drain men instead of build them. And that distinction matters. Men aren't rejecting love. They're rejecting a version of love that demands self-erasure. They're rejecting the chaos. They're rejecting the emotional landmines. They're rejecting the idea that a partnership should feel like walking into court every day to defend your own character. And once men stepped outside that system, the fog lifted. Life got lighter, quieter, more honest. Solitude wasn't the punishment society warned them about. It was the reset button nobody told them they were allowed to press. In the quiet, men found their creativity again, their laughter, their energy, their ambitions, their identity. They found out that you can love your own company and still be a whole man. That being alone doesn't mean being lonely, and that peace isn't something you negotiate for, it's something you protect. Women expected men to come crawling back. They expected biology to override logic. They expected fear to do the heavy lifting. But it didn't. Men didn't crumble. They evolved. They adapted. They built fuller lives than anyone predicted. And now the narrative has flipped. Instead of men chasing relationships to feel complete, relationships have to prove they add value to a man's already solid life. The future belongs to people who bring respect, balance, and actual partnership, not entitlement, not chaos, not emotional dumping disguised as love. And men have never been clearer about what they will and won't tolerate again. If you're a man listening to this, your peace matters, your voice matters, your boundaries matter. And the more we talk about this shift openly, the healthier the next generation of relationships will be. So stay with the conversation, stay aware, stay growing. And if this message hits something in you, if it feels like the truth you never had words for, consider sticking around. There's more to say. And this is just the beginning.